Hello, friends and beautiful people. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since I have gone live and talked to you. It was last year. It's New Year's Eve of 2021. Hey, everybody who's joining. Hello, hello, hello. Who do we got here? Let me see. Hello, Mama. Tammy's here. Marissa's here. Corinne's here. I can't see who else. Heather. Hey, everybody. How we doing? I am freshly showered for you. You're welcome. Too bad this isn't being presented in smell-o-vision because I have this beautiful rose body wash that I love, and it's so nurturing and yummy smelling. And hey, Rachel! And I wish you could smell me. How's everybody doing? Like I said, yeah, it's been a minute. But I've been getting myself together, and I'm one of those people that likes to come to you with my energy on point and intact, and to be able to be in a place where I'm present and responsive instead of spinning off in different directions. And hey, we're all doing that right now, right? We're all kind of feeling spun off in a lot of different directions. We're looking at what's happening in the world and we're like, what the actual fuck is going on? Let's just call it out for what it is. We are in strange times. A reset is always going to feel strange, right? Let's hope that you're welcome, Christine. I hope it was helpful. Christine is working on something real good, you guys. I hope that you did post that in here today, Christine, for Make an Offer Monday. She has an incredible offer right now, which we were talking about this morning. So it's hitting all of us, even though those of us who are self-proclaimed thought leaders, way showers, torchbearers of the new earth, grounding through timeline work and timeline healing, the new earth timeline, because it's here, we just haven't fully grounded it yet. And that's why this reset is happening. There is a bigger plan for us all. And it's going to be a minute before it makes sense. Maybe we'll have fleeting moments where some of this makes sense. You know, maybe we'll have those moments of lucidity and clarity where we tune in and we feel very present and we're like, okay, I see why this is happening now. I see what has to happen. And a lot of the things that are playing out on the game board, the chess board of 3D earth, time, space right now, they have to happen. These things have to transpire. In order to make room for the new, there must be a releasing and an unburdening of the old. And the stuff that has been weighing down our collective consciousness here in 3D, it's got to go. It's got to go. And like I said, it's not going to make sense. You're going to look at it through the lens of your everyday life, the everyday activities, exchanges that you find yourself in, and it's going to just feel off. It's just going to feel that way. And you can say, the universe is testing me. You can say that I feel so unlucky. Look at everyone else. They seem to be having so much luck. And you don't believe everything you see, folks. Don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything you see. It's time for us to be our most discerning selves ever. And so everyone, rich or poor, I don't care where you are in the world, what culture, religion you belong to, we're all feeling it. We're all going through this collective purge. And we need to. And that's the hardest pill to swallow, I think, is that this needs to happen. We can't fleece ourselves of these old structures, these old ways of being, literally how society, how our norms and modes of being have been set up it has to crumble. It has to dismantle, because what's taking hold will not take those pieces with it, because a lot of what is dismantling and crumbling and collapsing, these were structures that were never meant to be finite. They were always meant to be temporary. Everything in 3D existence is, by its nature, temporary. Nothing here lasts. Nothing. And so to the degree that you have tethered yourself to this old way of being, it's going to be more painful for you. There's going to be more to grieve for, because you're going to feel this grief in a very, very real and tangible way, because you're trying to hold on to a version of you that can no longer be supported. It can no longer be sustained, because the energies that are hitting this planet, the new Earth timeline that's taking hold, it's a higher vibration, and you can't take this shit with you. You can't take it with you. The lower vibration, self-identifying thoughts and beliefs that would do you self-harm to think them about yourself, as habitual, as familiar as that may be, you can't take that shit with you. That baggage is not coming along for the ride. And this is a very, very painful thing. Even though thinking these things, feeling these things, believing these things about yourself, that maybe you have chronic doubt, or you don't trust yourself, or you feel unlucky, whatever it is, you cannot take that baggage with you into the next phase of our spiritual and human evolution. It's just not going to go. And we're going to try to keep, shoving it through, trying to keep moving it through into the, ever-evolving portals, higher frequencies of being. We're going to try to drag this shit along behind us. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. When those of you who are Harry Potter fans, and in the first installments of the movies where they would show the kids how they would have to go through the brick wall at the train station in order to get on the Hogwarts Express, right? And that first couple tries, they would just hit the wall, because they didn't believe that they could go through this wall and get on the train and go to this new awesome wizard school that they were going to, right? It's kind of the same way with your shit, your baggage, your stuff. The more you hold it, the lower you keep yourself in vibration, and you can't enter into these new portals. You will literally get bounced right back out again, and it's going to make you feel more in a place of being in conflict with yourself. 9 3/4, yes. And you're going to be creating your own struggle. You're going to, from within, create your own suffering, your own struggling, simply because of what you're not going to let go of. So when you think about certain ways of being that are just, you're holding on to them, you're tethered to them for whatever reason at this point, where can you first start to see that it's just habit? It's habit for me to think these things about my life. It's habit for me to think these things about reality itself. It's just what I'm familiar with, to have this ongoing inner dialogue with myself about how incapable I am, about how, I fucked this up again, whatever it is. And we have these endless, what I like to call fuck my life moments, where we're like, this again? Really? You're not being tested. Those of you who have been watching me, following me for a while, you're in my courses, you know that I'm always talking about you are never being tested. The universe does not test you. That implies that the universe has judgment and is saying, well, are you going to do what's right here? The universe doesn't work in absolutes like that. Black or white, right and wrong. It doesn't work that way. There is no judgment that the universe has about what you're doing one way or another. The only thing the universe is looking at, when we think about our energy, our input into the greater cosmic field of one, everything that ties us to source, everything that is source, the origin of source, and everything that fragments from that, we are part of that. We're part of that tapestry. There is no judgment in this higher space. There is only ever the ask. And what you're asking for might very well feel like pretty lofty desires at the moment because you're looking around at the world and you're saying, oh my God, look at the state of woe and want that we're all languishing in at the moment. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to end. I guarantee you that it will, because as I mentioned, nothing here is built to last. The nature of 3D reality is temporary and illusory by nature. It is. We came here to play with that, believe it or not. And so even though you're in those moments where you're like, this is forever, this is my life forever, this is a fixed reality for me, every day is going to suck more than the one before, and you're going to have this way of thinking that is doing something to you, not only just making you feel like you're unlucky, but there's another word for that. Being in alignment. So you are either in alignment for these higher ideals that you're asking for, or you're not. There's no gray area here. Let's dismantle anything that's illusory about that right off the bat. You are either in alignment with this higher expression, this higher way of being, this more idealized version of yourself that you fantasize about minute by minute, day by day, week by week. You're either in alignment with that because of what you're thinking, because of what you're believing, because of how you're feeling about yourself, and also what you're doing, or you are not. There's no gray area here. Alignment is a state of choosing the highest and best expression of you, not only because it's something that you want, but how much are you backing that up with? Are you willing to go along with a certain new level of believing about yourself that aligns with, or is in accord with, is coherent with this higher ideal and expression of self? Because you can want and scheme and plan and create intentions and stand on one full leg under a full moon and do prayers and invocations and all that shit, and constantly be in a state of want, which is lack, by the way. It's a lack mentality. It's an impoverished consciousness. And then do all the other things that keep you tethered to this old way of being. And then you'll just think of yourself as being unlucky. You'll just look at yourself as like someone who's been singled out by the universe to be punished, to continue to suffer, to continue to struggle. Or you do the much needed inner work of changing even one or two things that you think about yourself every day. Change one or two feelings that you have about yourself every day. If you're really battling inner conflict, it may not be that you can create all these new feelings and beliefs and ideas and thoughts about yourself right off the bat. And it's going to be hard for you to do that. And why set yourself up for more failure by trying to go too big too fast? Start where you are. Look at the last 6 months of your life, because we tend to have a lot of amnesia. We have a short-term memory bias. And we tend to think about the things, it's a cognitive bias to focus on the negative, first of all, but we have this cognitive bias in terms of temporal existence to look at what's happened very recently that sucks. So go back, take inner inventory of the last 6 months. What worked out? What worked out? Was there something towards the end of 2021 that really worked out in your favor? Was there something that you decided doing that you've maybe had as a resolution, whatever, that you're still doing it? You're still active with that. You are still participating, in other words, in something that contributes to your incremental growth and evolution over time. Okay? When you are doing these things, it's important to be present, because the most instrumental thing in understanding whether you are in alignment, and by the way, let's clarify this, being in alignment, the way I talk about it, the way I teach about it, the way I share about it, is about being in accord with, in harmony with, that higher vision, that expression of you that you're asking for. Hi, G. And how you know you're in alignment is it feels good. Even if you might feel really fucking far away from this ideal version of yourself right now, if it feels good to put yourself in a space where you can envision, visualize, have the feelings take hold in the body, like, this is me doing this. How does it feel? If it feels good, that's alignment. Let's just simplify that, because I think everything this year, especially the way that I teach, the way that I share, the way that I'm going to be coaching and mentoring, it's about simplifying everything. If I had a word for 2022, it would be simplify. Uncomplicate. Hello, lovely. Hi, Nicole. So if we're to simplify this idea of alignment, when you think of something, when you want to invest your energy, your thoughts, your beliefs, a new feeling about yourself towards some ideal version of you, does it feel good? Yes or no? If it feels good, it's 100% meant for you. It's 1,000% meant for you. It's 1,000,000% meant for you. That is always and ever your guidepost for alignment. Now, if you're thinking about something in your everyday life where you feel like you're beating yourself up again, mentally, emotionally, about something you did do or something you didn't do, right? A commitment you didn't make to yourself is going to be the hardest thing you're going to feel this year. It's probably one of the hardest things you feel anytime, but particularly this year, it's about honoring the self and the commitments that you've made to yourself that you don't make good on. First of all, that puts you out of alignment with 5D. And it may seem weird to talk about, but being in alignment with dimensional consciousness that is beyond 4D, because 4D, there's still kind of this, it's a cosmic energetic soup of duality. So we still experience a lot of duality in 4D. But once you pass the threshold of fourth dimensional time space and you move into unity consciousness, we think of it as something external to us, but really unity consciousness is having complete harmony within, because you cannot have unity consciousness and a mass consciousness on the planet that takes hold in the collective, that is unified, unless every single one of those on an individual level, every single one of those people is participating with that within first. Always within first and then without, never the other way around. So unity consciousness is about inner harmony taking hold. We can't have mass consciousness on the planet be unified unless we have it in here first. It doesn't work that way. Okay? So if you're not making good on the commitments that you have to yourself, number one, you're going to continue to feel unlucky, and you're going to make your luck in a way where the buck stops with you, in other words. You're creating the resistance. You're providing that inner wall, inner barrier to you feeling in harmony with yourself. So the more and more that you call it whatever you want, create intentions, have a plan of action, have a to-do list for yourself. If you keep flaking on those commitments to yourself, you're going to feel more inner conflict. That inner wall gets fortified. It's like, imagine a mason in there building it up with more bricks and more cement and more mortar. Every time you do not honor a commitment you have to yourself. Obviously, you want to honor your commitments you have to other people. That's important. That's called being in integrity. But if you're not doing it for yourself first, you're going to continue to feel very unlucky. Because remember that wall I talked about where the kids trying to get on the Hogwarts Express, when they first try it, they don't go through the wall, they don't believe, they have doubt that they can make it through, they don't have an inner harmony with being able to move through that portal. Okay? So imagine your portal is moving into a higher elevated consciousness state of being, evolving your awareness, opening up to more unity consciousness within. If you're not honoring the commitments you have to yourself or that you've made to yourself, good luck with that. So there's that. You are going to make your luck by honoring your commitments to yourself. So be very careful. The promises that you make to yourself, let alone who you're making them to in your external reality and your external relationships. I am talking about the first and foremost point of duty to yourself this year, especially if you are asking to evolve into higher awareness. What kind of promises and commitments are you making to yourself? How dedicated and committed are you to making good on those? Are you making it a priority in your everyday life to show up and take some action piece on that? Are you inspired by it? Or do you feel like it's drudgery? Because your energy is your alignment, right? So if you feel like it's an inner drudgery to make good on those commitments you made to yourself, have fun with continuing to feel unlucky. Okay. When you are casting your gaze outward and making these comparisons, I wish that we would stop doing this, but it's kind of part of our human nature. We make these inner and outer comparisons, don't we? And social media certainly doesn't help with that. We look at what other people are doing. Maybe they're people who are in our field or who are pursuing something that we'd like to pursue on a deeper level, and we're seeing what they're doing and we're looking at it like, look how they got their shit together. Look how much they seem to have everything figured out. Maybe they do. On social media, again, don't trust everything you see, but maybe they do. Let's just say for the sake of argument, they do have everything figured out, okay? I will bet you dollars to donuts. It's because they are making good on the commitments and the promises that they're making to themselves. Yes, probably people in the external reality of their lives as well, but first and foremost, they are making good on those commitments and promises that they have made to themselves. So we can create our own inner slump, and we create a gap between who we are in alignment with our ideal and who we are out of alignment with our ideal. And the more and more it gets filled up with broken promises that we don't make good on for ourselves, the more out of alignment you are. And the more out of alignment you are, the more unlucky you're going to feel. Does that make sense? So if you haven't guessed it, there's some inner probing that you're being invited to do right now. The universe isn't testing you. Remember, the belief that the universe tests you is a belief in that the universe has ego. Because testing would mean that it has some judgment. She's not being a good girl. She's not doing the right things. The universe is compassionately witnessing everything you do, but it is not making a judgment call on whether you're good or you're bad. It's only seeing you as in alignment with your ideal that you're asking for, or out of alignment. There's no gray area. Remember, I said it's one of the two. Does this make sense? Is this hitting home for you guys? And again, I want to simplify this. I want to break it down. So the best way to start taking some inner inventory on this, what kind of commitments and promises have you made for yourselves? Fuck resolutions. I'm not talking about, resolutions. I'm talking about a promise that you make to yourself to just maybe be a better person, to be a better listener, to make more money, to be a better mom to your kids, to show up more and help people in your community. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you've made some sort of commitment to yourself, let me tell you something. On a cellular level, your body is listening. Your body is listening to, and paying attention to the feelings, the chemicals that get released in the body when you have a thought, create an intention, a commitment, a resolution, whatever it is. On a cellular level, your body is paying attention. Okay? And our body, like everything else on this planet, is being informed by higher frequencies at this point, much higher frequencies. And so it's almost like when you create an intention or you have a goal for yourself, a commitment, a promise you make to yourself, and you're making good on it maybe a little bit here and there, and then it just kind of drops by the wayside. It's like you got your body and you got your soul and all of the morphogenetic fields in and around the body that actually filter into the consciousness of the collective. It's like you got all of that excited and anticipating, like, oh, this is going to be good. And then you drop the ball. Believe me when I tell you it makes a difference in your life. You might think it doesn't affect you or it doesn't affect the collective. I guarantee you that it does, because as we move forward into these higher frequencies on this planet, literally the light codes hitting this planet are off the charts. The earth is changing. Look at the daily fluctuations and consistent rising in the Schumann resonance of this planet, okay? This earth on a very physical and tangible level is changing and shifting. It always gets informed in the ethereal first. The physical is the last place any evidence of anything shows up, because the physical is a very dense realm, okay? But on an ethereal level, when you're not making good on the commitments and the promises you have to yourself, and maybe it's because you're looking at your life and making comparisons and saying, that person's so lucky and I'm unlucky. So you're internalizing that mirror and you're making your inner reality unlucky, which is basically saying out of alignment. Your body is listening. Your body is paying attention. What happens? We can get sick. We lower our immune response, right? And we tend to look at the things that we created as intentions and we say, you know, what the fuck does it matter? It doesn't matter anyway. In the bigger scheme of things, it just doesn't make any difference. No one cares. I don't care. It's not doing anything to anyone in my life if I don't make good on this commitment. You would be wrong. Sorry to be so blunt, but you would be incorrect to think those things. More and more as the frequency escalates on this planet, what we do gets downloaded through the DNA and into the morphogenetic field, a way of being. We are downloading to each other through our thoughts, through our beliefs, through our actions, through our feelings all the time, a higher way of being or not. That's why I've said many times, your desires are not just your desires. Because following through on them and making good on them and accomplishing those desires, living in alignment, living inside of those desires, it informs the collective of the planet because it showcases to others what is possible. And when you are showcasing to others what is possible, it elevates the collective consciousness. Because that means, oh, this is doable now. That person did it, so can I. And so instead of comparing yourself in the old paradigms of comparison and competition, which is a completely low vibrational state of being, comparison and competition, by the way. So the longer you languish in those vibrational states, the more out of alignment you become. But when we are looking at what other people are doing, try to shift it as, if she can do it, if he can do it, so can I. Watch me do it. Hold my beer. I'm an aligned instrument. My initial investment in your course has been worthwhile. I love that simplicity. Thank you. And Christine is talking about my In Alignment program, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But it is about simplicity. It's about ease. And why would you want to make it more difficult for yourself? Why would you want to create more ways to feel dissonance and create struggling and suffering if you don't have to? And you don't have to. It gets to be easy now. The hard part is shifting out of our old habitual patterns. We're suffering from an individual and a collective hangover on this planet at the moment from old ways of being that were not wholesome. They never served the collective in the highest and best way. They never served us individually in the highest and best way. And yet the only thing that keeps us tethered to it really is a sense of familiarity and feeling like we've been habituated to that. We have to create new habits. It's incumbent upon each and every one of us in the collective to create newer and more wholesome habits. Does this make sense for you guys, what I'm saying? Do you have any questions about it? So when you think about the intentions that you have and the commitments, the promises that you want to make to yourself, be very careful and very deliberate in the promises that you make to yourself, because your body, the universe really, is listening. Big Brother is watching. I know that make it sound scary. But there's more riding on you meeting and making good on your commitments to yourself than you think. And it's a big part in shifting the collective towards something more wholesome. Believe me when I say that. Definitely time to break old habits, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. But not just break them because you leave an energetic void when you do that. Something must, that energetic potential doesn't get lost. We just need to roll over something in terms of that potential that was being not used in the highest and best way before. Now you get to use it towards something that creates something better for yourself, for the planet, etc. So what can you roll that over into? So the second you're willing to make the commitment to break with some old habits, what are you going to do to displace and offset that misplaced energy from before? What do you want to believe? Start right there. What do you want to believe? So we're talking about feeling more lucky. Do you want to believe that in every moment, in every thought, in every feeling I have, in every belief I decide to invest in, I am making my luck? Well, you could start right there. You could start right there. What kind of, if you want to call them affirmations or mantras or things that you want to write down, read back to yourself, say to yourself throughout the day to anchor a new way of being, you've got to do it through repetition. So if you're trying to fill a void of breaking an old habit and putting something new in place, you've got to do it through repetition, because look at the way you've been habituated to things in the past. It's from experiencing that over and over and over again, right? That's how we got to be a certain way where we're not maybe necessarily living our highest and best, most idealized expression, because we are habituated to certain thoughts that aren't good, that aren't in alignment with that way of being. And it's just habit. But it got there as a habit and a way of being because we reinforced it through what we thought, through the thoughts we feed ourselves, the information that we feed ourselves, the comparison that we keep having, the competition, and all the suffering that comes from that we keep, putting upon ourselves and burdening ourselves with. It all got to be that way through repetition. So you've got to be diligent about creating a new level of, well, I have to put this new feeling I want to believe, that I want to feel, I want to think, I got to put it on repeat. And say it to yourself over and over and over again. Okay? And we can definitely get in a place where we have this inner conflict more and more, to the degree that we realize we are creatures of habit, we are as humans, and that it can feel unsafe to create new habits oftentimes. This is where we start getting into self-sabotage. This is where we start getting into ways of being that we actually developed very early on to kind of, in painful situations or situations that didn't feel safe or allowed us to feel secure or stable, we fragmented early on a part of self where we said, hey, this part of you is going to be the stronger one, the more resilient one, the wiser one in situations where I don't know what to do. And we start to fragment ourselves early on in life. We've all done it to a certain degree. And we create these kind of saboteur aspects. Okay? And so, having done this early on in life, we all have our own kind of archetypes of saboteurs that we work with. When you're trying to make change now, it'll be no different than when you were a tiny human, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and made a decision to fragment yourself, to literally split off a part of you. And that became your shadow. But somehow you feel like this part of you, this shadow, is the part of you that can cope in painful situations. It's the part of you that has more information in those moments where we feel highly engaged or triggered or whatever. But it's a game we play with ourselves, because that saboteur aspect that came to life in that moment of a trigger or a charge of energy we felt like we couldn't handle at the moment, it's still a part of us. It just exists in shadow. So as you're trying to make these new intentions for yourself, and you're trying to make good on a new plan of being, being a higher version of you, getting more out of life, moving into a place of thriving and flourishing. And yes, that's possible. Even with everything that's going on in the world and with the world's events right now, this is still possible because it's always an inner state first, okay? And I don't mean interstate like the Highway 5. I mean inner state, inner reality of being, okay? You can make the choice to be in alignment with your highest and best ideal, regardless of what is happening in the external reality. You can. And you have to get good at it. In other words, to move forward through this timeline, it's incumbent upon us to get good at that. That our inner reality is so resolute, it's so fortified that no matter what is happening outside of you, what trigger may come, that you can maintain a sense of neutrality and not have it push your buttons. This is our higher destiny, and it's possible. And so when you're making these decisions, so that no matter what happens outside of you, you're going to make good on these promises to yourself. You're going to constantly make strides every day to reach this higher potential that you know is destined for you. It's going to feel unsafe first. And this is exactly those moments where we go back to old habits because we feel like our inner saboteur swoops in to try to save the day. So then we start investing our energy towards that shadow aspect. But then here's what happens. We just start doing more things that are so out of alignment with what we want, and that we just beat ourselves up even further. And we're even harder on ourselves. We find ourselves being in even more doubt, experiencing more inner conflict. Who's there right now? And I'll be honest, this was my my last week plus, week and a half, 10 days. I mean, just be honest. You're in a safe place to share here. Who's feeling that? Like you're honestly really, really trying and making strides and making it a priority. That's a huge thing. If you want to have a commitment to yourself that takes you into a higher way of being, you have to make that a priority, meaning every day you show up and do something on that, right? And whether it's thinking a new thought, feeling a new feeling, having a new belief that you anchor into, it is so, so important that you make this part of your commitment and promise to self every day, that it's going to be a priority, that you'll do something to bring yourself around to this new way of being. And the more you do it and the more repetitive that is, the less your inner saboteur shows up, okay? Because it's in those moments where the inner saboteur shows up and takes over, and we start going to old habits that we know aren't good for us, that know aren't wholesome, that we know don't take us in the direction that we're asking to go in, and we beat ourselves up even more, and then we feel even more shitty inside. We tend to, grab that ice cream out of the freezer and mow down on it like it's our last meal, have a pity party, say, oh, poor me, I wish someone would just come and rescue me, right? Our energy goes way, way, way down. And we're like, I just feel so unlucky. Everyone else has it so good, and insert whatever excuse or reason in there. And we have to make peace with, and this year is an opportunity, a gift, for us to really see where we're not marrying our human, our ego self, our small self, with our bigger self, with our soul self, our eternal self, our God self, our master aspect. This is the year to see where we don't have that coherence, where there's one that is more powerful than the other, where we feel like aspects of the two are at odds with each other or exclude each other, cancel each other out. It's going to be coming up in really high contrast, high relief, where we might be asking for a higher level of experience on this planet, but we're not doing anything to get us there, and we're still putting so much stock and so much of our attention towards getting the advice or input from a part of us that really doesn't have any feedback for you on who you are in your eternal nature, as an infinite self, as a master aspect. Your ego, the small self, can only give you information on what has been, meaning what has been part of the human experience. It's validated, it's confirmed, it's part of our history here, or what you have done personally. So what we've downloaded into the collective as what's possible or what's been done, the ego takes note of that. The ego takes note of what you've done personally in your life. Outside of that, it has no ability to give you feedback, information on anything that hasn't been experienced by you specifically or been experienced in the collective as a whole. And yet, our human nature dictates to us through repetition, through habituation, to keep going back to this aspect of self, to be like, is this going to be okay? Is this going to work out? Your ego has no idea what the fuck you're talking about. The ego can't give you any information on possibility and potential unless it's delegating its awareness to something that's already been done by you or some people or groups in the collective. I've been in the trenches since Scorpio season, but in the last 2 to 3 weeks, really shifting and making my thoughts and new good habits a daily practice. That's awesome. That's how you do it. It's got to be a daily commitment. So when you go into those moments where you're fantasizing and daydreaming about your most ideal life, and you're spending some time with it so that you allow the feelings to come in the body, you allow the feelings to show up in your body, you can feel this expression of you as if she's or he's right here, right now. That's the sweet spot. That's you going into an aspect of self where you are divinely witnessing your master aspect of you doing something already taking place in a timeline that you have not grounded into your reality yet. In other words, you haven't merged this master timeline that you're viewing. Essentially, you're remote viewing a potential that exists because you're looking at you, a version of you in a timeline that's already there, because if you couldn't have awareness of it, you couldn't see it, it wouldn't be a timeline that existed. But the second you create the awareness, you create the desire, that timeline begins. It's there, it's anchored. It's already a potential and you're already exploring it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to have such a visceral exchange and cellular communication with this vision. So when you start feeling it in the body, that's how you know it's real. That's the feedback that your body, and the incredible mechanism that it is telling you, like, this is real. And for all intents and purposes, your body will treat it as such, will treat it as if it's real, as if it's happening, because essentially, in a timeline that's just not grounded into your now dominant timeline yet, it is happening. And I know this is wild to think about, but the second you create a desire, you have an intention, and you put awareness on that, that potential exists. And you wouldn't have awareness of it if it wasn't 100% meant for you. So your desires are really important breadcrumbs. They're really important guideposts because they give you a glimpse into something you're already doing. It's just a different aspect of you that's exploring it at the time. And even though it's not part of the timeline where you have the most of your investment in terms of your energetic potential you're exploring the most, is your now dominant timeline. So you sitting here, watching this, exchanging with this, feeling into what I'm talking about, watching my lips flap, this is your now dominant timeline, okay? This is where the thrust and the focus of most of your energetic potential is just currently being invested. That doesn't mean that you don't have investments in other timelines. They're just not receiving the bulk of your attention and focus like this one is, okay? So the trick is to anchor this higher potential, this higher timeline, is to spend more time with it. Have a more of a visceral exchange with it, where you feel it down on a cellular level. Like, this is me having this thing, this is me doing this thing, this is me being this person. The more real you make it in your body, and then follow up with it with action. And I'm not talking about just taking outward action, because in this 3D physical realm, action is creating new thoughts that align with that. Action is taking the time throughout your day, even if it's 5 minutes, to go back into that feeling all the time. This is what it feels like for me to be, do, have this thing. That's action. Taking certain actions, like, I don't know, maybe if you're in business for yourself like I am, creating a program that feels really aligned for you. It feels like a message you want to share. It feels like a journey you want to take people on and be involved in yourself. It inspires you, it lights you up, and you feel into that. And it's aligning with this higher potential or expression that you're designing for yourself. It's all part of the pathway to get there, in other words. That's also taking action. But not just doing that. Taking action means creating situations in your everyday reality, even if it takes you 2, 3, 5 minutes to do it, where you're in that place. And you're creating new thoughts that help you anchor in that place. You're creating new beliefs to help you anchor in that place. You're creating new friendships and alliances, relationships in your outer reality that are helping you to hold that place, okay? Action can mean many, many different things. But the second it feels like drudge work or I have to do this, you put yourself out of alignment. So you have to make it fun. And losing the hustle and this idea that we have to force things and really attach ourselves to certain outcomes, turning out this way or that way. It has to look like this kind of success I'm asking for, this achievement, etc. The more and more you set that up, like it has to look like this, and it needs to come in this timeline, and it needs to be brought through by this person or this experience or whatever, then you are navigating this amazing creation activity from a small self. You're navigating it and you're trying to force it from the ego self. That part of you can only give you feedback about what has been. So you're cutting yourself off from potentials that no one on this earth plane has had the opportunity to ground yet. What if you're the person that creates an intention, a way of being, is setting up something new on this planet that no one has experienced yet before? What if that's you? It might be. It probably is. But is there some part of you, the ego part of you, that you'll take this idea and put it up against, that sounding board and try to get advice from that aspect of you? Guess what it's going to tell you? Oh, no, not me. Oh, not me. I don't do that kind of thing. I've never had that kind of experience before. I'm not a leader, blah, blah, blah. All the reasons we give ourselves. So do you see how quick and easy it can be to cut yourself off from voluntarily something really magical, really wonderful that not only benefits you, but benefits the entire collective? Because then you get to download to the collective, hey, this new thing is possible. Wouldn't that be lucky? Does that make sense? And we're being asked to not create and perpetuate these inner walls, these inner barriers anymore, but to be in alignment with something new, and to be in alignment with something new, something more wholesome, something far more expanded than we've had take hold on this material, physical, 3D earth plane so far. You can't think like you always used to. You can't behave like you always used to. You're going to have to get uncomfortable, and you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Does that make sense? I'm not getting any responses here. Hello? Are we alive out there? Hello? So being lucky, feeling lucky, creating luck, because you create your luck. Everyone creates and makes their own luck. Hi, Saffron. Another word for that is alignment. And you are either in or you're out. So if you think of yourselves as maybe being lucky or unlucky, swap those words out for being in alignment or out of alignment, because it's one of the two. There's no gray area. You are either in alignment with this higher ideal you have for yourself and you're taking action on it. And we've learned that action is not just, setting up a website or stuff like that or getting an email list together. The action piece is also, are you creating new thoughts, beliefs, feelings about yourself that are in alignment with this ideal you're designing? Yes or no? It's pretty simple. It's pretty cut and dry. Again, let's simplify this. When I am taking action on this, where does it feel off? Where does it not feel right? Is that maybe this inner sabotaging mechanism coming up because I'm creating something that feels unsafe? Why does it feel unsafe? The only reason it feels unsafe is because your ego is saying, this is something we haven't done before. Ah! It'll start the freak out cascade, I call it. The freak out cascade is when we automatically, we interface with something that feels triggering, it feels highly charged because it scares us, it puts us off our game, it puts us in a place where we feel like, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I have the abilities, the capabilities, the skills, the knowledge, blah, 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 blah. And you go in through this freak out cascade, you can pretty much tick off the boxes. All the reasons why I can't do it, all the memories I have in my past that showed me I wasn't able to do it. And you kind of go through this inner inventory and you end up proving to yourself, once again, why you shouldn't do this thing. And only because you keep going back to a part of you that can only give you feedback on what has been and what is, and not what is possible, not what is in the potential realms. The ego has no purview, no domain, no idea what the flying fig you're talking about, if you're talking about something you haven't done before. So it runs home to mama. It gets scared when you start exploring new potentials. That's normal. But do you have to be tethered to what is normal and what is habituated? Or do you get to create the new habits? Do you get to create the new normal? Do you get to create the new realms of what's safe for you? I say I live a charmed life and I find it to be true. It doesn't mean crap doesn't happen, but things are always working out for me. Absolutely. And some of the things that Nicole and I have explored, because she's in my In Alignment program, is that being this way doesn't stop the triggers. The triggers are going to come. But the more that you decide not to opt into the small self, to have it be your sounding board, to have it be the thing that's like your litmus test for, should I do something or not? The ego is always going to tell you no. And it's going to give you all the reasons why you shouldn't do it. Okay? But the more you do this work of constantly looking at your life through a lens of the higher version of you that's already doing, being, having the thing that you're asking for, you're going to get a different set of answers on how to proceed. And it doesn't mean that things won't trigger you in your external environment. What it means is the more you delegate to this higher aspect of you, the triggers have less of a charge. They have less of an emotional impact, less of a mental charge. They're less likely to trigger you. So the goal is, and what does happen over time, is to reach a kind of neutrality with these triggers, meaning it doesn't stop the triggers. It doesn't stop you having those moments in life where you feel really challenged by life. But when you delegate to a different aspect of you and you clean up, when you take some inner inventory and you clean up the blockages, you clean up that inner barrier, you tend to have a more neutral experience when these triggers come around. The Flying Fig could be a restaurant somewhere. I would go there. As long as the figs are wrapped in bacon with cream cheese. On my way to work Saturday, I avoided an accident with a bicycle that crossed in front of me. Then a mile down the road was hit and run. Oh my God, how devastating. I still made it to work in time to take my client, and every client I had that day. And that's the benefit of it, isn't it, Nicole? That the more we do this work, we're so used to listening to the programming of this aspect of self, because just as you have ego programming constantly running in the background of your life, you also have your master, your God self programming, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, your intuition. That program is very much running in the background too. But this is a much more subtle energy. The ego likes to scream and yell and throw tantrums to get your attention. The God self master aspect, it doesn't need to do that. It won't do that because it doesn't need and crave your attention the way the ego does, okay? But the more we get used to tuning into the subtle frequency of this inner voice, our inner sage, our inner wise one, and we allow ourselves to make decisions and have discernment, paying attention to this level of programming that's running in the background, the choices, the decisions you make in your life tend to be very different. They tend to be a lot more wholesome. They tend to lead you further and further along the path incrementally where you're asking to go. It really is a time with, again, the universe is not testing. The universe is asking you to choose. Because there are going to be a lot of people on this planet, and maybe yourself will be included, where you just decide business as usual, keep doing things. You're going to feel more of a sense of inner struggle and inner suffering, because chances are, if you're here and you're watching this call, you're already one of those people that you know that there's a higher destiny for you. You know it. It's a non-negotiable. You get that, you know it, you see it, you feel it, you tap into it, you communicate with it, right? You play with it. So you already know. So understand that it's a game that you're going to play with yourself if you decide to just keep pursuing business as usual and saying, yeah, it's just too much. I can't do it. So we'll just see what happens. But then you'll turn around and in the same moment after you make that decision, why am I so unlucky? And you're going to feel that inner conflict and the burden of that conflict so much more if you're one of those people that knows that there's a higher destiny waiting for you. You've seen it, you've glimpsed it, you play with it, but you're not doing anything to anchor it. You're just kind of remote viewing that timeline potential, and you're like, wouldn't that be nice? But I'm not going to create any thoughts or feelings or new beliefs or take any inspired action on it whatsoever. Just maybe if I'm a good girl long enough and don't complain, maybe it'll just come to me. It doesn't work that way, kids. Hold on, I'm going to close this blind because I'm going blind. And so, if we're really honest, what we're asking for is to know our own power. It's to know how powerful we are. And you are. Because every moment, whether you believe it, think it, or not, thank you. I like my house a lot. Thank you, Saffron. You are creating your reality every single moment. With each choice that you make to think a certain thing, feel a certain thing, believe a certain thing about you, you're creating your reality. And you're either creating it in alignment with the destiny of who you are in your master aspect and who you are in alignment with Source and the New Earth timeline and all the wholesome things that we are trying to anchor here on the planet, or you are not. It's pretty, yeah, I said before the universe doesn't deal in absolutes, but one thing that is an absolute, you are either in the shadow, you're in the void energy and you are out of alignment, or you are in alignment with Source, which is wholesome and expansive, and it feels good. And you know you're in alignment or out because, well, how do you feel? Do you feel good? Do you feel triggered? Feeling very triggered today due to new jab laws. And they're going to keep coming. So if you know that, because the voices behind that and those who would hold us back from ascension, those who would hold us back from a higher destiny of thriving and flourishing, they're not done with their game yet. But what we have to 100% believe is that ultimately we have the power, we hold the power in how we choose to respond. And if you decide to respond as someone that doesn't have any power to create change, those new laws that keep coming out, and they're not going to stop. We're going to have another year plus of this. I'm sorry. Things are getting sussed out. There's huge reorganization happening on many, many levels. So you either allow yourself to feel subjugated by someone who holds the puppet strings, but that will be a level of perception, not from the most wholesome aspect of you, but from your ego, your small self. Or you decide, I am keeping my sovereignty. I do not consent. I do not consent. There's going to be something coming with me and a few other thought leaders. One of my long-term friends, mentors, peers, and another gal, we're going to be coming together and doing some talks about this because I feel it's really, really needed. And it's going to be happening rather soon. So those of you who are feeling, yes, really triggered by external events and need more help with grounding into your power, grounding into your sovereignty, realizing that you have the ability, I don't care what anyone tells you, you have the ability to claim your sovereignty and to not consent. And the more of us that do this on this planet, we are going to change the paradigm and the structures of things. But you have to understand, folks, really, if you take away nothing else from what I've talked about here today, what's really hanging in the balance here for everything going forward and all the changes that are going to happen on this earth plane, whether wholesome or unwholesome, there is one thing that hangs in the balance here and is the most important thing and a foundational way of being going forward. Your inner strength has to be so resolute, so fortified. You have to be so strong in your convictions, your values, your principles, your ethics, what matters. And isn't that something that we've explored in the In Alignment program for those of you who are here? Hi, Lorianne. Lorianne, would you agree with me? Kathryn, would you agree with me? Nicole, would you agree with me? These are some of the things that we've focused on in the In Alignment program for a reason. Because the more that we have the strength of our resolve, it is unfuckable with. I will not skimp on, compromise on, and I won't consent to something that is out of alignment with my values and my principles and my ethics. Because these are the things that give our life meaning. And if you feel like someone outside of you has the ability to take away from you what gives your life meaning, then we're all just going to give up hope. Do you understand? Do you see how that works? And so clearing out everything that you are not allows you to pave a pathway to a higher level of inner strength and fortitude and resolve that is unfuckable with. How can they impose something ludicrous and ridiculous on someone who feels unfuckable with? Not really possible, is it? So as we simplify and uncomplicate ourselves going forward, that is clearing out all the detritus, all the debris, all the habituation, all the levels and layers of being of all that we are not, the more we are leaving room to create, talk about resolutions, I'm talking about being resolute in who you are and the highest destiny of who you were always meant to be. And the more fortified you are in that, and the more strength you feel from this level of you, you are not available to be fucked with. You're just not. You won't stand for it. You will not consent to it. You're not available, and it's a non-negotiable. You no longer opt into the madness and the craziness. And in order to get this in the mass collective anchored, we got to one at a time it. That's why I created the In Alignment program. And so I hope that this has helped you, and I hope this has given you some strength and some resolve of your own. And I hope that you will take some of the tips that I've shared with you in here. But the In Alignment program, I'm teaching the last module this Thursday, where we are talking about aligning with more and overflow, because you guessed it, if you're aligned with your master aspect, you are not in alignment with just a survival stage, just a subsistence level of living. You are aligned with more and overflow, because that's who you are destined to be as your master aspect. And so I'm opening this up for self-study. if you're going to join one really, really powerful program this year, where you don't emerge the same person, you emerge more resolute, stronger, more fortified in your resolve. You know who you are beneath and beyond all the layers and fabrications of lies that you've bought and sold to yourself over a lifetime because you were just trying to survive, and also because you didn't know any better at the time. This is that program. It's very, very powerful. And so for this week only, through this Sunday, if you join at the full price of the In Alignment program and you are a soul-led entrepreneur, I'm going to add on that program for an additional $250. So that's a savings of over $600. So if this is aligned for you and you want this level of commitment, this level of fortitude and resolve in your life, you want to come out of this program not as a different person, but who you were always meant to be, without all of the fluff and the fat, all this stuff that doesn't belong there. All that which you are not gets removed in this program. It's very, very powerful. I lead you through a very, very powerful and pivotal process in this program. Unfuckable with. Thank you for your service. You're welcome. Thank you, Sherry. So if you're interested in that, you can respond here in the comments. I'll have the link for the In Alignment program. We will start teaching it live again on March 9th. So when you join any of my programs, you're welcome back live every time I teach it. So you get to take this self-study course, which I highly recommend going through this content more than a few times. People who are in the In Alignment program, I've taught, this is the third time I'm teaching it, just finishing it up now. People have come back all 3 times because you get something out of it every time you go into this program, because you are open up to a new level of you, a new level of awareness every time you come off the heels of this program. So when you go back and take it again, you get to peel away more layers. You get to remove more of the complexity. You get to simplify and streamline. So March 9th, we'll be teaching it live again, and you sign up now and you're able to come back. You come back every time I teach it live. You won't regret it. So if there's one extremely powerful program this year for personal transformation that you sign up for, let it be this one. You will not be sorry. It's big. It's a big container. It's big shifts. And those of you who are really focused on making huge commitments, huge promises for yourself that you intend to make good on, this is your program. And if you sign up at the full payment price, I will give you for soul-led entrepreneurs, the In Alignment and Thriving for Soul-Led Entrepreneurs program for only $250. So lots of love and peace to you guys. Anyone who's a last-minute joiner for the Timelines Expanded Masterclass, we start that tomorrow. The doors will close on this program tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and they won't open again for another 12 weeks when we're done with this program. So if you want to get in, doors are closing tonight. Timelines Expanded is an incredible program too. If you feel called to it, this is a one-of-a-kind, singularly unique program. You won't be sorry. So we start tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Zoom. Mwah! Love and peace. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.